Alright, what's up, you guys? This is Devin from Project Sax. We're back with another Project Sax episode. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that one of my subscribers had asked about. He had commented on a video and he asked me, alright, well, now I'm about to buy another saxophone and I'm in a marching band. What saxophone should I buy? Alright, so the way I'm going to tell you this is I've been in a marching band for about 8 years before I stopped. So I'm going to give you 5 simple ways to break it down to find out what kind of saxophone, what brand, what you should be looking for, and things of that nature when it comes to buying a new saxophone. Now, in particular, the first thing you want to look at is your fingering positions. This is number 5, ranked from 5 to 1. Now, the reason I put this at the bottom of the list is fingering positions are very important when it comes to marching. In a marching band, the way you have your hand placement on the horn is extremely important. Now, for a trumpet player or a brass instrumentalist or somebody with 3 valves that don't have to move their hands as much, it's not that important. But when it comes to your saxophone and you being able to play it, you being able to hold it correctly so you won't bend it out of shape or have wrong notes at the wrong time played, it's very, very important. So a saxophone that is very comfortable in your hands is extremely important for a marching band instrumentalist. And the reason being is because it's just so many other things that can go wrong in general. Okay, so number 4 on the list is saxophone age. Now, you might not think that this is very important, but it's extremely important because saxophones that were made a long time ago, I'm talking about like 1940s, maybe 35-ish, but 40s and 50s, maybe sometimes 60s. Now, the reason why it's so important is because this saxophone's age, if it's older, it tends to have parts on it that break or fall off, stuff like that. Okay, so you have soldering points, you have different spokes, you have spatula keys that really don't hold up over that, what is it, 60, 70, maybe 80-year time period. So you end up marching down the street and like your octave, the whole octave mechanism just falls off once it hits like one little thing, or you tap your neck against your buddy's neck. Things like this happen in the marching band world all the time. Or maybe you put it in your case the wrong way or something like that, or maybe you closed your case really fast. You were tired after 10 hours of marching in the sun, or maybe you were in the sun and all this weather and different temperatures really make these metals contract and expand to the point where one of your soldering points came off or one of your posts came off because the saxophone is just too old to keep up, things of that nature. So after time, weathering, all these conditions that you march in affect your saxophone. And if your saxophone's not up to par with, the age, if it's not being, manicured or took into the shop or, pads being changed, all these things will be very, very detrimental to you as a marching band player, especially blowing wind into a wind instrument, especially the saxophone. You will have a lot of issues playing your instrument if it's an old horn in a marching band. Now, you said a new saxophone. A new saxophone doesn't necessarily have to be a brand new saxophone. It could be an old horn, but new to you as a player. Because a lot of people like vintage horns, and a lot of people don't think about that little tidbit. So if you're getting a different horn, not necessarily a new horn, old or age is very, very important. Old saxophones, no go when it comes to marching band. But old saxophones do have a really, really, really good sound if you find a good one. So it all depends on what you're looking for. All depends on what you got. But try to find a saxophone that's sturdy, that's old. If you need to get one that has good sound, because I know they're like sought after nowadays, vintage, just make sure that the posts are strong, things of that nature, because that's all you have. That's all you have. Okay, so number 3 on the list is weight. Okay, so a lot of people may not think about this at first, but think about it last. Now, saxophone is not the heaviest instrument in the marching band. You have tubas, you have euphoniums, you have trombones, you have F horns, you have mellophones, and all these different instruments that are a lot heavier than the saxophone. Tenor saxophones, bari saxophones in some cases, and when you marching chorus style marching, that's when you shuffle your feet and you walk pretty much on your toes and roll your feet when you're marching. You don't march high step. But in chorus style bands, you'll see heavier instruments in the saxophone section that have a broader, more symphonic type sound. Bari saxophones, maybe some different types of clarinets, but definitely different types of saxophones to round out that to round out that chorus sound in the saxophone section. But going back to the weight of the instrument is extremely important. You have to get an instrument that you're comfortable holding with at that certain weight. Now, weight does affect sound in a sense when it comes to the saxophone. If you get a saxophone that doesn't have that much weight, that usually doesn't carry sound that far. Usually isn't that durable, and it usually doesn't stand up to certain things. But then again, weight can work against you when it comes to playing the saxophone in the marching band, because the marching band will put a lot of strenuous, you know, strenuous things on your body. You work hard, you lift things, you do horn swings. Horn swings are extremely important, since marching band is very militaristic, whether you're doing show style, whether you're doing chorus style marching. Militaristic discipline is very, very important. So your hand movements are always important. So if you have a heavy saxophone, if you can't do it, you might want to think about getting a lightweight saxophone like a Yamaha 23, a beginner model, and it'll just keep you in the, keep you in the endurance part of the marching band. You won't have to worry about holding the saxophone, because it's a big difference between a professional horn that weighs so much more than a beginner horn that doesn't have as many keys and has thinner brass on it. Number 2, we're going to be talking about brand this time. Now, brand is very important. Now, the guy that actually emailed me or sent me a YouTube video message about this, I couldn't find his message, but nevertheless, we're going to keep going. Brand is very important. The thing that was specific about that YouTube user that messaged me was that he said he was a first saxophonist and he had experience marching in a band before. So this is where your experience comes into play with brands. Brands equal loyalty in a sense. Now, if you have a favorite artist, you might want to look up the brand of saxophone that they play with, because they don't just play with any kind of saxophone. Usually they have a brand that they like and they cling to in most cases, especially if they're in the limelight and they're being endorsed, like Cannonball or Yamaha or Selmer or Kilworth or Jean Baptiste or wherever you want to play, Allura or Antigua Winds. All of these brands are good brands, but they're endorsed by certain artists that want that certain sound. You said you wanted a certain sound with your marching band. And if you're a first chair saxophonist, what you want to do is you want to be able to sit on top of the chord. You want to be able to play the high notes when it comes to, say for instance, you're playing a B and the second part is a G under that B, and you want to be able to bring that out. Or you're sitting on a chord, you're sitting on a FAC chord, things of that nature, where you want to sit on that C at the top, or if the C is at the at the bottom, if you're first chair and they want you to be able to play fast passages that require a lot of taxing on your hands or your armature or your or your windspan, with solos and solis and things of that nature, then you want to be able to stand out. You want to be able to sit above the crowd. So get a brand that has movement in mind. Saxophones that are free blowing with less lacquer and less things to keep them from moving fast. A more responsive horn, if you will. These things will really, really bring you to the next level when it comes to playing an F sharp, a high F sharp, out of nowhere. Because things like that do happen sometimes in a marching band, and you're expected to play it as a first saxophonist or playing altissimo register. So altissimo register, all these things, especially if you're in college, maybe at the end of your high school career, altissimo register. But all these things are very important with these new things when it comes to chorus style, and especially HBCU marching bands and show style marching bands with a high lift. They want to be, I want to be in your face. I want to be high. I want to have dynamics. I want to have, I want to have that range, things of that nature. So all these things matter when it comes to buying a new saxophone. Don't chimp out. If you're trying to get something really good with durability, you want something with a little bit of weight on it. You want something with a little bit more, stylish look to it maybe. Don't chimp out on the price. This is where you can't chimp out on the price. This is where you have enough, money to be like, I've been playing marching band long enough to be able to upgrade my saxophone without having to worry about price or things of that nature, because I have been able to play at that level and I deserve this. That's what level you're on when you're at brand recognition. When you're trying to go for a certain brand, a certain sound, a certain, a look or a feel. One thing you really have to worry about when it comes to saxophones in a marching band is looking uniform. Everybody wants to look uniform in a marching band, so don't get on your director's nerves and be like, oh, I forgot, we don't use these saxophones. Or if everybody has a silver saxophone, you might want to stay with a silver saxophone. Or if everybody has a gold saxophone or unlacquered saxophone. If you ever seen a military marching band, everybody has the same saxophone. That uniformity is key, especially in some bands. So, especially in military bands, but I doubt that's what kind of marching band you're in. This is the number one important factor out of everything when you're getting a saxophone in a marching band. Now, durability is key and everything like that, but all of this falls under this umbrella of price. If you get a cheap saxophone like a Chinese Cecilio or a $300 saxophone, this really won't do you justice in a marching band. If you drop it once, it's like they're trying to get it fixed. You get it fixed and they can't find parts because it's a third party brand and all those other things that you have to worry about. You can't chip out on the price. That's one of the main reasons why a lot of people have broken saxophones, unlacquered saxophones, saxophones that can't be fixed because they get a cheap saxophone. Say, for instance, a Cecilio saxophone. It may sound good to you or it may have some nice features to you as far as sound, but the durability, the build quality, the lacquer the coat will start to peel off extremely, extremely fast. Now, lacquer tends to peel off, especially if you don't polish your horn, but if you don't have a saxophone that has a good coat on it, all those colored crayon horns, I hate those. Those literally, it looks literally black when you find it, or it looks purple, or it looks pink or blue. All that stuff is just a gimmick to get you to buy a horn, and that is not what you need in a marching band. Especially when the marching band, when you want to look uniform, you want to look together, you want to look the same, and what you want is a saxophone that has a good price, maybe one that's $1,000, maybe one that's $900, but nothing $300, $400, $500. Not no Amazon gift pack, because that saxophone is not going to get you through the wear and tear of marching bands. It's not going to get you through the weather. It's not going to get you through high step, or show style marching band. It's not going to get you through chorus style marching band. It's definitely not going to get you through a militaristic marching band where everybody has to look the same. It won't work that way. You have to know your marching band. And some marching bands, especially in high school and or college, they will be like, oh, well, all saxophones have to look the same. But at the same time, you do want a saxophone that you can go out there and say, hey, this saxophone is decent. This saxophone is strong. This saxophone is not something that's going to break. This saxophone is not the most perfect saxophone in the world, but this is not a saxophone that I just got for the cheap. You see what I'm saying? Because saxophones have so many intricate parts to them. They have so many intricate parts. Pads, spokes, spatula keys, pearls. They have all these things that could possibly go wrong with the saxophone. And you don't want to get a cheap saxophone. Why? Because if they chimp out on one aspect, maybe pads, maybe it's those springs that, always get out of place, or break off really easy. If they chimp out on any of that stuff, or the chimp, a word, basically make it cheaper than it actually needs to be, just to be, safe, that's where you're going to find problems. You see what I'm saying? Even the coat itself on the saxophone can be made out of a cheaper grade. You see what I'm saying? I've seen it happen all the time with saxophones. I'm not going to name any brands, but the thing about it is when you're out there marching, you want to have a saxophone that's going to look nice. After maybe 3 years, I saw a saxophone with the actual coat start to come off, the actual colored coated saxophone, and all the lacquer started to come off and peel off and chip off, and it was just a grody looking saxophone. It just showed the brass, and it really wasn't what the actual look of the saxophone was supposed to be. Thing of that nature. Now, in a lot of ways, the new jazz artists, they want to, have, everything tarnished and everything vintage looking and things of that nature. If that's what you want to go for, then that's fine. But don't chip out on the price of a new saxophone, especially if you're trying to upgrade yourself. Because if you downgrade yourself to, oh, this Cecilio looks nice, or this Chinese brand or this third party brand looks nice, it's great and everything like that, but not for anything substantial, anything, weather intensive. And I retract my last statement. I would never buy a saxophone like that for any case. You see what I'm saying? Because if you playing for a while, like you said you was in the email, you want something that will represent you, something that shows how hard you have worked, something that does justice to all the hard work you've done in the marching band. But you don't want to get anything too nice. But at the end of the day, don't chimp out on the price. Remember these 5 things. You want to remember your finger placements, how the saxophone feels in your hand. You want to think about how the saxophone aged, how old is it. You want to think about the weight of the saxophone. You want to think about the brand, the name. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to chimp out on the brand or the name. And also, you don't want to forget to get a saxophone that has the price that vouches for the saxophone. A nice brand, a Jupiter Capital Edition is nice. Let's see, a Selmer AS500 is nice. A Yamaha 62 is nice. Even though that's a little bit of a nicer horn, things of that nature. So think about those brands. Yamaha is always a durable brand, and Yamaha is probably the number one saxophone I would use for a marching band because of its strength and its durability. No matter how bad it is outside, or if you bang it up, you'll get a dent, but it's not something that, it's not gonna like break in half or anything like that. It'll be great. So this is Devin from Project Sax. Wish you guys good sound.